Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, 15-time winners of Best Auto Repair in Vancouver. We're talking about brakes today. How you doing, Bernie?
I'm doing well.
So brake noises. My brakes are making noise. What does it mean?
Excellent question. Brakes can make a variety of noises, from squeaks and squeals to grinding noises, and a few other interesting sounds as well. So we'll start about talking about grinding noises. Grinding noises are usually the most serious noises, because what that indicates is that the brakes, the brake pads, I'll just use disc brakes for example. Disc brake pads have worn out completely, and they're now, the backing plate, which is steel, is now rubbing against the brake rotor, which is steel, and that causes a very loud grinding sound. Here's an example. This is a little demonstration piece that we show our clients. It shows different thicknesses of brake pads. You can see the red on the top is very thin pad, and on the bottom green is thick when the brake pad is new. And there's the black piece is the backing plate. So that's an example of what happens when it goes metal on metal. It's gone beyond the red part. It's now metal on metal. Now, sometimes grinding noises happen, and they're actually not worn metal on metal. We've had cars where we drive them and they sound awful, and it's not. There's actually nothing really wrong with the brakes other than making a bad noise, and that can be due sometimes to the material that the brake pads are made of. It's somehow changed composition, or something about it is causing it to make a grinding noise. It's not very common, but that's what the general cause of the grinding noise is.
So are all noises serious?
Well, no, they're not. Some of them, the next noise we'll get into, squeaks and squeals, are sometimes an indication that your brakes are worn out, and sometimes they're not. And I'll talk about what you need to do about noises in a minute, but we'll just go through the noises. So squeaks and squeals are sometimes a natural occurrence with brakes. The way a brake works, if you look at a brake disc, it's almost like a record, an old-fashioned record, if I can actually use that term, old-fashioned. But it's like a record, and the needle plays in the record, and that creates a certain noise. And brakes are similar in that way. There's a lot of science that's gone into preventing brake noise. It used to be a much more common problem than it is now. Brakes are actually, generally, we run into very few problems, but we used to do a lot of work to prevent brakes from being noisy. There's even silly things like elastic bands that would go between the brake pads, and special goop you put on the back of the brake pads. But nowadays, it seems like the science has worked it out pretty well. You still do get some squeaks, but the point I'm making here is that squeaks can be a very natural part of brakes. Sometimes annoying. If they're not too bad, I would suggest leaving them if the brakes have got good material on them. But it's worth looking at the brakes to find out whether the squeak is actually something serious, because as brakes wear, they can also cause a squeak, and it can indicate that your brakes are worn out. Same with squeals, same thing. Now, there are sort of normal brake squeaks that you hear when you apply the brake, like a ee, or there's a type, sounds similar, but it'll happen all the time when you're driving down the road, and then when you put the brake on, sometimes it gets worse or it actually disappears. Now, these are generally caused by the brake squealers, which are put on the brake pad to indicate that your brake pads are about to wear out. So it's important to heed that warning.
So, are there any other noises?
Well, the other interesting, actually, we had an interesting noise a couple of weeks ago. A customer actually had their vehicle towed in because the noise was so severe. So, a Ford Ranger pickup truck, she went around a sharp corner, and all of a sudden the brakes just started making a horrendous noise. And driving the vehicle into the shop was like, it's like the sound of a freight train going by with the brakes on. I mean, it was just the most awful noise. Pulled the wheels off, had a look, and found a little rock stuck between the brake backing plate and the brake rotor. And so it just set off a vibration between the rotor and the brake backing plate. And I mean, honestly, it was the most horrible noise you can imagine, but really it's posed no safety concern whatsoever.
So that covers it. Yeah. What should I do if my brakes start making a noise?
Well, the most important thing to do when your brakes start making noises is bring it in for an inspection. Have it looked at to see whether the noise is in fact something serious. Because as I alluded to during this talk, I mean, some noises are serious and some aren't. If you really just don't want to hear any noise, you can get the brakes fixed, but sometimes you may have brakes that have a lot of life left in them, and they're just making a noise. But it could also indicate that your brakes are worn out. And by bringing it in immediately for an inspection, you can save a lot of money and keep your safety of your vehicle up top notch. So get it inspected. That's the key.
So I've been talking with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver. If you want to book your inspection of your brakes, give them a call, 604-327-7112, or check out their website, pawlikautomotive.com. Thanks, Bernie.
You're welcome. Thanks, Mark.